are talking Phoenix Suns, potential next head coach on the list of 9 candidates, which kind of sounds like Kellan might get narrowed down to 3 or 4 this week. One of the names I know a lot of people like, I know you like this name, is Micah Nori, Minnesota Timberwolves assistant. And so to give us some insight on Micah Nori, joining us right now is Jace Frederick, the St. Paul Pioneer Press Minnesota Timberwolves reporter. Jace, thank you so much for the time. How's it going?
Hey, good guys, both you.
Let's just go big picture with Micah Nori. You know, I know I'm asking you to project to a certain extent, but what qualities do you see him potentially having to be a head coach, whether it's in Phoenix this year or somewhere down the line?
Yeah, I mean, I think the easiest way for me to answer that, I think a lot of being a head coach, yes, there's X's and O's, there's rotations, all that stuff, but I really do think there's more, like in the NBA even, of developing a program, and I think Minnesota has kind of done a great job of that. The guys like are in the off season, they are in Minnesota, they're sticking around, they're putting in extra work there, the player development program throughout the season. This is why Minnesota has so many young players who contribute and actually develop and grow as players. There's a lot of this stuff that the Timberwolves have kind of established as an organization, and I think Micah Nori has played a bigger role in that than oftentimes gets admitted. I did a story last year just kind of on the coaching staff and this chemistry that they've had and the way they've impacted the players, and I didn't bring up his name like ever, and yet every single staff member I talked to would just be like, well, Micah Nori, blah, 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 he's this, he's funny, he's great, he's like a light. If he's in a room, you want to be in that room, all that stuff. And so I just think a big thing that the Timberwolves have had that's been successful, like this is the first team that's gone to back-to-back West Finals since 2019. It's hard to have sustained success in the West. People just like going to work there. And I think Micah Nori is a huge part of that. And then obviously he handles the Wolves rotations. He's pretty on top of it with the challenges, stuff like that. So he's doing a lot of in-game stuff anyway, which I know it would probably be a concern of like younger coaches, first-time head coaches. But he's a really bright guy who just has this personality that everybody kind of flocks to. And I think just innately just draws people to him and makes people want to come to work every day. And I just don't think throughout an 82-game grind plus playoffs and an NBA season that can really be undervalued.
How important has his relationship been with Chris Finch, the head coach, not only just with the way that they work together, but the way that Chris has sort of enabled him and allowed him to grow as a coach as well?
Yeah, you're talking about like two guys who are, I mean, probably about as close of friends as you'll see, like in like a head coach assistant coach relationship that started in Denver, and they just immediately like magnetized to one another. But yeah, Finch trusts him really to no end. That is his right-hand man. That's why, like, Micah will draw out the rotations of, like, okay, we're going to get this guy in. Here's when we're going to get him in. We're going to get, you want these combinations? Here's how we're going to draw that in. And like I said with, like, the challenges, yes, they have the guys in the back row who are looking at the iPad and, like, making the calls, but Micah is immediately the guy who's like, okay, that went out of bounds. And he's looking at them like, check for proximate foul there, and, like, looking at them and waiting and immediately relaying if there's something there. And Minnesota has been one of the better challenge teams in the NBA. So Micah does a lot of things, and he's more of an offensive guy probably than defensive, but his hands are in a lot of things, and like it's a very open, and everybody's described this, like when the Wolves go into like a coaching staff meeting, it is super open. Everybody's throwing their opinions out, and there can be some heated back and forth, whatnot. Like it's about one of the most enabled coaching staffs in the NBA in terms of like your opinion matters, and you can speak your mind, and they want you to challenge people. And Micah's kind of been at the forefront of that. I think he's done a lot of things that head coaches already do within this organization. Like it would be a blow to Minnesota if Micah eventually does get hired and get one of these jobs.
We're talking to Jace Frederick. Jace, one of the things that is interesting to me about Micah as a potential Suns candidate is I look at the Timberwolves, this team you cover all the time, and that team has not been afraid to make significant changes. The Rudy Gobert trade a few years ago, and then even the Karl-Anthony Towns movement this past summer, and yet the last 2 years with pretty different-looking teams now, they've made it to the conference finals. In your opinion, how much of that was Micah Nori? How big of a role was he playing in that stability?
Yeah, I mean, he's a pretty big one in that he is one of those guys where, because look, even when these things happen, when they trade for Rudy Gobert, the first season with Rudy Gobert was terrible. They were an awful team to start the year. They were significantly underperforming expectations, and then Cat goes out for most of that season. And Micah is a really good person that, A, like they're always looking at, okay, how do we fix this? What has to happen? But B, not overreacting. This coaching staff very much believes, like, we have a vision. We're pretty sure it's going to work. Yes, we'll tinker here and there. Yes, maybe we have to inject this guy into the rotation. But in general, these things take time, and there's just no real panic. And they have a general emotional intelligence of how to handle guys when things are going bad, when things are going right. And by the end of that season, they were much better than they were at the start of it. And then you look at this year, and they're, by the end of this season, significantly better than they were at the start of it. So I think they're very creative in terms of, okay, we have these guys. Does that change the way we play? Like when you get a Rudy Gobert, it significantly changed the way they played versus what they had the year prior, which they probably overperformed with that roster, but that was like a fly-around defensive team. And this, now they had to start playing drop coverage. Guys are basically learning drop coverage. And then they're like, okay, and when Rudy's off, now we'll be back to more of this high wall look and kind of toggling and, oh, that doesn't work. These guys can't quite handle that. Let's move here. The entire time, while guys like in the locker room are like, whoa, do we stink now, basically, the coaching staff is like, okay, we're good. And there's just kind of a trust in it, along with all this player development stuff that I think Minnesota's better at that than anybody. You watch Terrence Shannon Jr. come in the game these last couple games, and he's just like a lightning rod for this team, and it's because the program they have for guys who aren't playing, for rookies who are just kind of working their way into the NBA, like there is a real emphasis put on making sure that these guys are growing and that they're ready when called upon. So there's a lot of things I think that go into it that no matter what, as you change your roster, they're going to get the best out of it. And Mike has played a pretty big role in that. And like I said, so often when you struggle, it's just emotional stuff. It's like keeping guys upbeat, keeping guys wanting to come in the gym, keeping guys from wanting to mail it in, keeping players themselves to wanting to figure out the answers. I mean, I think Minnesota's done that better than most.
You mentioned Micah's personality, but to expand on that a little bit, just what is the type of personality that he offers, and how does that aid him with the responsibilities that he has as an assistant?
He's a massive relationship builder. Just in terms of like the players, they all, and really everybody in the organization, but players love to talk to Micah because, you know, as much as anything, yes, he'll have these conversations, these enlightening X and O talks, and he maybe get on you like, hey, you need to be better at this, but it's always in a way where he has spent so much time joking with you, asking about, you know, family, whatever, to where you know he has your best interest in heart. And I think that that's what he's had a lot of success with players. Like Terrence Shannon's like, hey, when I was going in for Game 3, it was Micah who told me, like, you're going in tonight. You're going to be in with this minute mark, all this kind of stuff. Like he's oftentimes a news bearer to guys, whether good, bad, whatever. And it's because he's built so much rapport with them that he's pretty comfortable having those types of conversations at all times, and he's one of the most personal people you'll find. So yeah, I think that matters a lot, even within the coaching staff, within some of these like fiery coaches meetings, and then just also with players, because there are messages, good and bad, that have to be delivered throughout the year, and he's one of those guys who has built up these relationships where it's easy to have them.
Jace, before we let you go, I wanted to ask, I know this isn't the top of anybody's mind there right now because you guys are trying to get to the NBA Finals, but if this team comes up short, is Kevin Durant somebody that they might be interested in? Is that even feasible in Minnesota?
Yeah, so it's definitely something that, and I know the exact truth to which you get this, you never know. But right after the trade deadline, there certainly was like there was a real push made by Minnesota here, and you even heard that around Minnesota. I would be interested to see after these results, because I haven't necessarily revisited any of these conversations, but a pretty good run here in the West, and certainly they've run into an OKC team that appears to just be better than them. And then you kind of wonder, okay, well, they're not going anywhere, so do we have to upgrade here or there? But I think Minnesota feels better even now significantly than it did at the trade deadline about what it has and maybe its direction, and just with more continuity and guys continuing to grow and seeing who they can bring back. Naz Reid, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, maybe Julius Randle are conversations they'll have to have in free agency, trying to retain a lot of this core. But I guess I would be a little bit more surprised now than I would have back in February when they hadn't quite hit their stride yet, if they're still in that market. But Anthony Edwards will always be a massive Kevin Durant fan, and I know the Wolves love Kevin Durant as a player. So I wouldn't be surprised if they definitely sniffed around those conversations, but I think maybe their urgency to make that type of move and the degree to which they would be willing to give up a lot of parts for the now and the future has maybe decreased a little bit.
Jace, this was great, man. Thank you so much for the time. I know you're busy right now.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Thanks. That's Jace Frederick, the St. Paul Pioneer Press Minnesota Timberwolves reporter, joining us right there. I mean, they got a lot of conversations right now that involve the Timberwolves. If you're talking about the Suns, when you're talking about Micah Nori, you're talking about a potential landing spot for Kevin Durant, and who knows what else.
Thanks for watching Wolf and Luke. Tap to see more and click the button in the middle to subscribe to Arizona Sports.